This conference will now be recorded.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, you guys got You guys were home eating, watching TV.
No, stop.
It wouldn't stop. Just
Whoever is in the boardroom, whenever the time comes, can they mute theirs because there's a lot of sound coming.
Well, the boardroom has to stay live so that everyone can be heard and recorded for the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's why we can hear it. Okay, thanks.
So, Ms. Campbell, how are you going to recognize us? Are we going to raise our hands?
So that's what I was just saying. If everybody would mute, I will know who everybody is.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, if you unmute, I'll call on you.
Gotcha. Okay, good.
On my side, everybody's got a little red thing down at the bottom. I don't know what y'all are seeing, but there's a little red thing down at the bottom that tells me your mic is off. If your mic is on, it will turn green. So
Great.
With the exception of the boardroom, which will stay green because of the recording, I'm going to ask everybody. You're on the phone. You can.
Does that also work on the phone when I called in the way I did?
Yes, sir. I can see you very well, and when you are unmuted, when you're unmuted, I can see you. You're caller number 2, Mr. Inkle. The only 2 right now I have unmuted are Bryce Pelfrey, and I think he may have stepped away from his computer for a minute. And then I don't know who owner is.
Band-Aids.
But they may have stepped away from their computer as well. As it gets closer to the time, I'll figure out who those 2 people are. But this is almost like Zoom, except Zoom lets you put a nice background on there. I'll be glad when this election's over if I get one more email.
Ready?
So, Jim, I think I heard a voice, but I couldn't tell where it was coming from.
Hey, man, your country's cut us all Americans off, man. What's going on?
You can get there, you gotta do it funny though.
I wouldn't chance it.
You can fly to Toronto and then go Toronto down and there's no issues.
Yeah.
Because even though Canada's been transiting passengers through an airport's legal.
What if you flew into like a port or an airport in the Caribbean and fly from there? You know you could do that?
Take a boat. So you can do the private jet.
I mean, not that I'm going, but you know, I did book my thing for my, I dive St. John every year.
There's 100 private charter planes out of Fort Lauderdale that'll take straight. Those are all legal. We were actually gonna go next Wednesday.
Oh, really?
I wonder if they know they're being recorded.
Oh, man.
And then that happened, and my wife was like, yeah, they think we cancel. Yeah. I don't know. What they're finding is it's all Bahamians who have gone to Fort Lauderdale and Miami shopping and go home.
I bet.
They haven't tried to single one before yet.
Have you been to Freeport recently? Oh, God. Did you fly to Nassau?
Yeah.
Nassau.
It's just one giant city.
I used to play, I was a very competitive tennis player, and I almost played for the Bahamian Davis.
It's an extension of Fort Lauderdale anymore, those close islands, Grand Bahama, Disney, Nassau. You gotta get out to Long Island, Exuma, Ferry Islands.
Beautiful island.
Yeah, the ones where there's no people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nassau's a drug infested place.
Yeah, that's the one thing they had. Last year they were warning tours of death rates, and that's what it was.
Crazy.
Wow. Maybe.
I saw that.
We can fly to Earthbound Town and then you can get
Hey, Daniel. How you doing?
Okay. So,
That is a piece of ugly art behind this fence. The art behind this fence. The art.
Vicki, I have a question.
yeah,
We don't do the pledge in these virtual meetings, do we?
yes, ma'am.
We do the pledge?
Do you have
What?
a flag?
Yeah, I can go get one.
Okay, yes, we do.
Okay. How do I display it properly though? Just like, I could set it behind me here.
Yeah, I'll set it behind you.
Okay.
You know, on Zoom, I have a picture of one.
This mic is still live. She's recording. She's recording audio.
Dale, I just realized that your name is Walter. I never knew that. Ah. Very nice.
Can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay, so leave it there. And then we obviously stand to do the pledge, correct? After the prayer,
Oh,
we all stand. do the
pledge.
pledge. Okay. I'm going to do the prayer sitting down, if that's okay, though, so you can hear me, and I'm right here.
Fine.
And then we'll stand for the pledge after the prayer.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I see Miss Schumo. I see Mr. Perkins. Waiting on Dr. Walker, Mr. Ponson, and Miss Ritz. Hey, Dale, we decided that, can you hear? Can you hear me? You have your mute on.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Can you hear
good.
me?
Yeah, so we decided what we're gonna do is have everybody turn their volume on mute. I mean, their thing on mute, and then if you want to speak, unmute, and I'll know it because it'll light up green on my end.
Sounds like a good plan.
Thank you. Bryce, are you there yet? I see you there, but I think he must have stepped away. Now I don't know who owner is. Oop, I see Dr. Walker. Well, I don't see you, Dr. Walker. Are you on via phone? Dr. Walker?
I'm here.
That's you, Dr. Walker?
Walker's here.
Okay. Are you on a phone? Or
My what?
are you on a phone or a computer?
I'm on the iPad.
Okay, well, if you will push the little camera on, we can see your head.
I'm sorry, I can't find the volume thing to.
The volume is on the side of the iPad. So look right here on the side of the iPad. My picture. There's a plus sign right there on the side of it. Push the plus sign.
Vicki, for those of us who have our iPads propped up, it's on the top.
On the top.
And then you can mute yourself or turn your camera on and off with the icons at the bottom of the screen. And you just touch them with your fingers. I'm on a computer, but you just touch them with your fingers. Turn it on, the camera on or off. And it'll turn red if it's off and green if it's on.
I'm glad they're
Walker.
practicing on you, Vicki, and so they'll be smooth at it next week.
Walker's back, and I have sound now.
Okay, now look at the bottom of your screen and see the little mic where it says.
Yes.
Okay, if you'll click that when we get started, it will turn your mic off. And then anytime you want to speak, just click it on and I'll know you want to speak. Because you'll show up. There you go. Perfect. Now let's see, we are waiting on Ms. Ritz, Mr. Ponson, and Bryce Pelfrey. I'll give them one more minute because it is kind of difficult to get on. I like this though. Almost Zoom, but Mr. Pelfrey?
This is Larry Walker. Can the chairman see me now?
No, sir, if you hit the little green camera, I would be able to see you. at the bottom of your screen?
So my camera's at the top, Ms. Campbell, and there's something else you click to share your webcam. So there are two processes.
Well, I'm not on the iPad, so I don't know how that works.
Well,
I want
I
to check
thought
my
I'd do,
mic. Am I able to be heard? This is Bruce. I want to check my mic. Am I able to be heard?
Yes, I hear you.
yes.
Okay. I'll only turn it on when I'm speaking, so I'll turn it off to keep background noise down.
Okay. Larry, did you see the picture yet?
Yes, the same screen that most of you would be seeing is projected up on the screen in the boardroom. We have staff members, 1, 2, 3, 4, 13, 14, 16 staff members here present. I don't believe I see anybody from the general public, though.
I have one number on there that I don't know who that is. That is owner. So if Miss Amanda would like to call the roll, then we'll go ahead and get started. And Mr. Walker, will you mute your mic until you're ready to speak?
Miss Benson,
I'm here.
Mr. Hinkle,
I'm here.
Chairman Campbell,
I'm here.
Mr. Kimball,
I'm here.
Dr. Alexander, Mr. Ponson, Dr. Walker,
I am here sound-wise.
Mr. Pelfrey,
I am here.
Mr. Perkins,
Perkins is here.
Miss Ritz, Miss Schneier,
Here.
Miss Schumill.
I'm here.
Thank you. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Everyone, please mute your microphone. So just push your microphone off until you are ready to speak. If you're ready to speak and you turn it on, I'll know. So Mr. Pelfrey, I think yours is still on. Other than that, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and Ms. Schneier is going to do the invocation and the pledge for us today.
Let's please bow our heads. Dear Lord, we ask that you bless this water utility and all of the employees and families of ECUA that ECUA provides services for. Thank you for blessing our community with clean, safe drinking water, and please help us to continue to improve the quality of services ECUA provides. Please guide and direct the decisions made by the Citizens Advisory Committee and the ECUA Board for the benefit of the community and the employees of ECUA. Please end this pandemic, dear Lord, and please bless the families of those who have been affected by the virus. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And we'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We move now to the adoption of the agenda. And if you have anything you would like to add, Mr. Kimball.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Does anybody have anything they would like to add before we adopt? I have two things. I want to have on K, which is unfinished business, which is time of CAC meetings, and K2 would be Florida West discussion.
I'll move the amended agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Schumer. And please vote. I guess we are going to vote, Bruce, with roll call. Thank you.
Yes, that is correct.
Ms. Benson,
Yes.
Mr. Inkle,
Yes.
Chairman Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kimball,
Yes.
Dr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Pelfrey, Mr. Pelfrey,
Bryce, you have to unmute.
Yes, I was doing it through my phone. So for some reason, it's not communicating through the phone. So I'll do it through the computer from now on. So
Oh, you can do a star
yes.
6 on the phone.
Yes.
yeah. Okay, Mr. Perkins,
Could you repeat the two add-ons, please? I didn't clearly hear what they were.
The first one was time, meeting time for CAC meetings, and the second one was Florida West discussion.
Okay, yes.
Ms. Schneier,
Yes.
and Ms. Schumo.
Yes.
And it passes 9-0.
Thank you. We move now to the approval of the minutes. They're on page 5 for the June 16 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the approval of the
Move for
minutes.
approval of minutes.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Ms. Schumo. Take the vote.
You ready? Mr. Inkle, Mr. Inkle,
That was yes for Inkle.
Chairman Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kimball,
Yes.
Dr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Pelfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Perkins,
Yes.
Ms. Schneier,
Yes.
Ms. Schumo,
Yes.
and Ms. Benson.
Yes.
And it passes 9-0.
Madam Chairman, are we going to get the minutes from these two meetings at the next CAC meeting? They'll be combined. Because we don't have minutes from last week's meeting, so.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do both next month.
Okay, thank you.
We move now to item F, fiscal year 2021 operating budget, and we continue where we left off last week with departmental budget discussions, starting on page 16 with regional services. And I believe
Are you ready for me, Mrs. Campbell?
yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Reed. I'm the Director of Regional Services. We're a department within the Maintenance and Construction Division. I report to Deputy Executive Director Jerry Piscopo. Our department maintains all of the wastewater collection system and the water distribution system. That includes all of the pipes, the fire hydrants, water meters, manholes, basically everything out in the system. We have 112 employees in the department. The service area is divided into 3 regions, an east, south, and west region, and they do all the pipe and meter maintenance. We also have another division that is a sewer maintenance division, and they maintain all of the manholes. They clean the gravity sewer pipes, and they do the video inspection of the sewer pipes after they're cleaned. We have some support divisions. We have a hydrant and flush crew. We have a valve and ARV crew, a patch services crew that they head up the effort to patch the roads after they've been damaged for maintenance, and a fog, fats, oils, and grease division that monitors the restaurants and makes sure that they are following our guidelines. The proposed budget for the department is $11.7 million. The key staff in the department is I have a manager of regional services. His name is Ryan Dunlap. He's a professional engineer. He manages a lot of capital improvements that the department is doing, and some special projects and a lot of other miscellaneous type things. We have each of the regions has a superintendent, and the sewer maintenance division also has a superintendent. And then we have 8 what we call senior utility service techs that report to those superintendents. All of our higher level technicians have a water distribution license or a wastewater collection certification, or both of those. They are the license is issued by DEP. The collection certification is FWPCOA service organization. The targeted accomplishments for the department for fiscal year 20 were to test all of the 1,000 large meters that we have. We've tested 900 of those so far. We should have no problem getting the rest of them within the last 2 months of the year. We set a goal of inspecting 3,000 manholes. We have so far inspected 3,377, so we're ahead of the goal on that. We set a goal of 1 million feet of sewer main to clean. We've so far got 850,000 feet. We set a goal of 250,000 feet to inspect with by video, and we have exceeded that with 440,000 feet inspected so far. We set a goal of 2,500 fire hydrants that we would flow test, maintain, and do any type of preventative maintenance to. We're almost 2,400, so we will get to that goal. We have met our schedule of flushing dead ends and problem areas. We're on schedule with that. We're on schedule to do our all the preventative maintenance on the air release valves that we maintain. We've got a goal of 4,000 water valves that we're supposed to do preventative maintenance on. We're at 3,655. And then we set a goal of reviewing all of the food service establishment applications for discharge permits, and we are on track for that too. Some of the accomplishments we've had over the year, we've completed a project to replace a force main on Mackey Key Drive. It was a problem force main that we have just completed that project. We installed a critical 16-inch water valve on Via de Luna Drive, which was a much more difficult effort than you might think for one valve. A project to replace water and sewer mains on Club Street from Main Street to Government Street. We've abandoned 42 ARVs that were in poor condition, and so we don't have to worry about them failing anymore. We've cleared 5,000 feet of overgrown easements so that we can better access our utilities that are within the easements. We developed a plan for a bypass for the Cwrf transmission main, and we purchased the materials that we would need to implement that plan. Managed a project to stabilize the transmission main in the old Rolling Hills landfill. The transmission main was undermined by the flood of 2014. We've been waiting on FEMA funding. That project is out for bids now. We have a project to construct a storage warehouse at our Godwin Lane facility, and that project is ready to be advertised for bids. And then we've developed and initiated a plan to clear easements and inspect the Carpenters Creek trunk sewer main. Most of you are probably aware that we had a failed gravity sewer pipe there. Some of our goals for fiscal year 21 are to complete the project to construct a storage warehouse at Godwin Lane, complete the project, stabilize the Cwrf transmission main in Rolling Hills, replace or upgrade some of our water meter vaults. We have a priority list for that, and we'll work through the priority list until as long as funding allows. Make repairs to the sewer system where we have to do routine monthly cleaning. Again, we have a priority list, and we'll work through that priority list until as long as funding allows. We want to abandon the remaining ARVs that are in need of replacement. We want to upgrade we have a receiving area at the Warrington facility for sand that's removed by vac trucks from the gravity sewer, and we need to make improvements to that receiving facility. It receives the sand, and then we dry it out and then take it to the landfill. We want to replace or repair all the water valves that need to be maintained according to our priority list. We want to increase our ability to access easements and clean and inspect the mains, and to continue to clear easements for improved access to the utilities that we need to maintain. So that's kind of an overview of the department. As far as the budget goes, we've got some modest increases. Most of that is related to the growth of the water and sewer system, and the continuing, the water and sewer system get older every year, and we have more and more failures, more things that need to be repaired. So that was all I was prepared to say. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So if anybody would like to ask a question, if they would just unmute. I see Ms. Benson.
I assume I'm recognized. I've got a couple of things, but first I want to comment. You interface with the public a lot of times when they're pretty unhappy campers, and that's after a sewage spill. And I am always impressed by your demeanor when you meet the public in those circumstances. You are very professional, very matter of fact, and explain it very well. And it's not an easy job, but I'm very impressed with the way you handle that. Now I've got two areas for questions. One is when we have a sewage spill, and a lot of times these aren't our fault. Walk me through the process. What happens first? How do we do notifications? When do we do notifications? And what's the mechanism for that? And then when do we notify people that a boil water notice isn't necessary?
Well, the process with an SSO, start there. First of all, we want to get it stopped, and,
right.
And that could be, it varies in difficulty. So we do whatever's necessary to get the SSO stopped, and then we repair whatever is causing the issue. And then we will clean up the area with vac trucks, and then we spray and disinfect the area with, we have several commercial disinfecting products that we use. As far as a boil water notice, and that would, and as far, okay, notification on the SSOs, we have to report to DEP, the Department of Health, and there's another one called the state warning point if it meets certain criteria. And that's kind of a new rule by the governor instituted. As far as a boil water notice, we issue that when the integrity of the water main has been compromised, and we think there's a possibility that some bacteria, et cetera, may have been introduced into the pipe. Once the pipe has been repaired and flushed out, we will issue boil water notices either by door hanger, we'll put them on somebody's front door, or if it's such a wide area, and this is kind of rare, we will have our public information officer issue a boil water notice via the media.
May I continue, Ms. Campbell?
Yes, please do.
So this is an area where I have gotten some complaints in the past, and people say to me, we didn't find out in time, and we're worried that our drinking water was contaminated because there was this X amount of time of lag between the event and when we were notified to boil water. And then we didn't know when we could stop boiling water. Is there a way that you could work with public information to have a really clear process on how to alert people, a quick response on the ECUA website, for example? I don't know if there's some sort of a phoning process, but I'd like to see that developed in a very clear way so that I can answer these people and say, this is our process. If that could be one of your goals, I would appreciate that.
Understood.
The second issue has to do with FOG, which is a great program. Do restaurants just pay an automatic fee to be part of the FOG program? How does that work?
Yes, ma'am. They do initially when they first sign up with us. There's a fee for to be, and I think there may be a monthly fee. I'd have to ask Gabe about that, but I believe that is to, and it kind of funds the FOG program. And then there's an application fee when the restaurant first starts service with ECUA.
Okay. So in this pandemic, restaurants are being hit very, very hard, as we all know. And it's hard to give people relief, but I was wondering if maybe we could suspend the FOG fees, the ongoing FOG fees, for restaurants that meet a certain threshold of compliance. You know, we have a certain group of bad actors, but most of the restaurants, you know, are compliant, they do all the right things. Would it be possible, and I don't think it would make a huge difference in their budget right now, but still it would be a gesture of goodwill to remove that fee for a time period during this pandemic. And I guess you don't need, I guess all I need from you is whether that would have such a budget impact that it would cause you a problem in running the program.
I don't think so, just off the top of my head. I'm not sure what the process is to suspend the fee. I'll be happy to look into it and see what we could do. We have kind of reprioritized. We've reduced our inspection schedule on restaurants because we do acknowledge that it is a difficult time for restaurants.
Okay, good. Thank you, and thanks for all that you do.
Ms. Benson and Ms. Campbell, I would add a few comments so that decision and policy process can go through an informed decision process. I'll gather some information about the actual costs and what the impacts might be, and I'll slip that in the board report this weekend.
Thank you. And thank you for the great questions, Ms. Benson. Ms. Schumo.
I just have just a few questions on the reviewing applications and issue discharge permits. How many of those do we have to review, and where are we? I know you said we're almost done. What does that job look like? How many?
There are approximately 1,000 food service establishments. All of the applications have been turned in. I think we're over halfway through reviewing them and issuing the permits.
Okay. And you spoke earlier on the priority list. There's two different priority lists. Is that somewhere located where we could see what the list is for the I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm like writing all over the place. One was for a valve, right?
Yes, there's a priority list of valves that we've identified that need to be repaired or replaced. I think the other one was let me see. Oh, water meter vaults I think was the other one that I mentioned. I'd be happy to give you our list. It's kind of just an informal list that we maintain just so that we can kind of check them off as we go through them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Ms. Schneier.
Can you explain the process of how you inspect restaurants for fog?
There are several things that the restaurants are supposed to do as far as like keeping a screen on a floor drain inside the kitchen, keeping up signs that kind of advise the employees of how to appropriately clean dishes, to remove grease and oil before it goes into the sink. Probably the biggest component is going and checking their grease trap or grease interceptor and making sure it's working properly. That's the big one. That tells you if the grease is being removed from the wastewater stream prior to it going into our collection system.
And is it ECUA employees that go and inspect the restaurants?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is it optional for restaurants to participate in the FOG program?
No.
So if you're a restaurant, you have to participate in the FOG program. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. Ms. Pelfrey. Bryce, did you have a question? I also have a caller 3 that has joined. I don't know who that is. It could be Mr. Thompson, Rick, Dr. Alexander. Someone joined, but I can't see who that is.
No, Vicki, this is Bryce. I did not have a question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kimball.
Yes, thank you. So on the budget, with what you had budgeted originally last year for overtime, we exceeded that. And then I see it was increased for this upcoming year's budget. I mean, but it's still less than what was used this past year. Is that really feasible that we're going to see a decrease in overtime for this upcoming budget?
That's certainly our goal. I think there's some things that we can do to try to eliminate the usage of so much overtime. A lot of that's just unpredictable. We don't know what's going to break and when it's going to break.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caller 3, your light is on. If you have a question, I don't know who that is. Ms. Schumo.
Just a quick follow-up to that last question. So it says here one of the objectives is to reduce operational costs through improved efficiencies. Are there already ideas or processes in place that we're doing to reduce that, or have we, in what we're doing, if so, are you seeing the reduction in the operational costs?
Well, we work every day to try to improve our efficiency. At this point, we're still, we're still working to implement some of the ideas that we have. It's going to take a little time, but I think we're on the right path to make things more efficient.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, Brian. On the FOG division, we used to give out an award, Environmental Steward Award, for a FOG program doing things right. Do we still do that? I haven't seen it in quite a while.
Yes, ma'am, we do. The FOG program, we usually identify some restaurants that have done a very good job, and we hand those to, we forward those on to Jim Roberts, and he kind of handles the presentation and all of the rest of the process.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe we could maybe we could know that, maybe we could showcase that a little more. I just think it's important when people are doing it right, that we let the world know that they're doing it right. Also, I had a question on the flushing at the end of the lines. How often is that done? It says here it says twice a year, but I've had a couple people call me about that in recent times, that they're having issues at the end of the line. So should we just email you or email Jerry?
Yeah, you should, by all means, email me if anybody ever has an issue with water quality. We'll take care of that. DEP requires that we flush all, I think it's 6-inch and larger dead end lines twice a year. So, and then we also have a regular program that any areas where we've had past issues, we flush as much as is necessary to keep the water quality consistent.
Thank you.
Consistently good. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And I was going to say, Lois, I like your question about notifications on SSOs. With our new IT system, that might be something we talk to John about, of a better notification system. I think that would be fantastic. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We move now to water reclamation on page 20. And is Don our presenter, Bruce, or? Oh, nope. Mr. Sears. Mr. Randy Sears.
Yes,
Newest
ma'am.
member to Leadership Pensacola.
Yes, ma'am. I thank you for nominating me for that. I have been accepted in that program, actually starting in January of 2021.
I think it's great that you're going to be the face of the ECUA out there. Thank you for agreeing to do that year-long program. Go ahead. Absolutely. I'll give you the floor.
Absolutely, ma'am. First of all, thank you, Madam Chair, CAC members, for having me today to be discussing Water Reclamation Department. We are a group of 73 individuals who oversee the operations of our 3 wastewater plants around the county, as well as the water quality laboratory. So we have the Central Water Reclamation Facility. That's our new one. That is up north, takes care of primarily the city of Pensacola, the east side of town. Bayou Marcus is on the west side of town to take care of the west side of town from Perdido Landfill south and across Perdido Key. And then we have Pensacola Beach as well. We have 46 licensed operators that currently work for us. The treatment facilities are required to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we always have a staff of at least 10 individuals working. Right now, 17 of them have the highest license in the state, and last year we processed about 7.5 billion gallons of wastewater that came to us. The Water Quality Laboratory, that's 12 employees. 5 of them specialize in the laboratory operations themselves. That's sample analysis, sample receiving, as well as coordinating with some of our contracted laboratories for tests that we don't do in-house. Last year, they analyzed themselves in-house greater than 22,000 samples. Those are compliance samples. Those are also process control for water and wastewater. We have 5 individuals in the lab who specialize in field operations. Those are the individuals who go out and do all of the field sampling. So whether it's the distribution system, the wastewater collection system, or the water wells, we do perform all of the sampling on those locations. That ended up being over 5,000 samples last year. That group also deals with in-house customer complaints. So if you are having a customer who complains about a pink in their sink or a black on their tub, that group will be the ones who go out and communicate with those customers. In addition to that, the lab also has 2 individuals in our pretreatment program. The pretreatment program is primarily responsible to regulate and monitor the industries in town that discharge to our collection system, the effluent, the flows that go to our wastewater plants. I'm a man of relatively few words, so I'll move on now to the targeted accomplishments for FY 2020. And this COVID is really putting a hurt on our targeted accomplishments. The DEP has basically been shut down working from home since March. The earliest return date that they have now is August 13th. So any communications that we have through them is to their personal cell phones at this moment. That would include the Pensacola Beach operating permit. Our current operating permit expired in April. We are what is known as administratively continued at this point in time, meaning that we have done everything that we are supposed to do. We're waiting on DEP to issue us a permit. If I had to guess right now, our new permit should have been around in March. If I had to guess, it's probably November before we'll actually see that. The other one here is Cwrf, alternate discharges of effluent. The DEP has been putting us off for about 9 months on that one. They have delayed several times on us. They've asked us to request extensions a couple times. So that one's really not getting there. Something else here that I had was inspections from DEP and DOH. We have had 2 inspections this fiscal year. one Bayou Marcus, and we've had a Department of Health laboratory audit. Both of them came back in compliance. Bayou Marcus had no comments at all. The lab was very, very minor. And in fact, I got an inspection report from DEP regarding our pretreatment program today, and we are 100% in compliance there as well. The last one on the targeted accomplishments for FY 2020 was 99.9% in permit compliance. Well, just for the board, for all of your knowledge, calendar year 2019, we ended up with meeting 13,829 out of 13,830 compliance points. We missed by one last calendar year to have a perfect year.
I'd like to be put on the screen. This is Louise Ritz. I finally connected. Charles, can I be put on the screen? I don't mean to interrupt, but I've tried for a half hour, and this is finally I've gotten on the screen.
We do show you as connected. If you're not visible on your own screen, it might be because there are several participants.
I have to ask to be on the screen, the information tells me.
Vicki, if you're speaking, you're muted.
You can click through that, Louise.
Pardon?
You can just click next.
I don't see next on my screen.
Do you have a little button at the bottom of your screen that says camera?
Yes.
Click on it.
It's just screen sharing disabled. To start your screen, ask the organizer to make you the presenter.
No, you don't want to hit that one. Hit the one that says camera. There's 4 buttons down there.
I have 5.
Well, the one that says camera.
It doesn't say anything. It just shows
a little camera.
Okay, let's see. How's that? Is that good?
There you go. I see you.
Okay. Yes, we see you.
A half hour I have been trying.
Thank you. And if you would please hit your microphone button, and it'll turn it off unless you want to speak. And if you want to speak, then you have to hit it again. And I'll know that you want to speak. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Sears.
Oh, that's fine. So far this fiscal year, 9 months in, out of approximately 10,370 compliance points, we're at 99.97% compliance. A couple of those we have traced back to one of our industrial users, and we are communicating with them about their effluent discharges at this time. Looking ahead into FY21, one of the big things is all of our operators' licenses are up for renewal, which means that we need to have continuing education units for them all, as well as applications in for their licenses on time. Those are DEP required. We actually need to have licensed operators on site 24/7. It's just not an individual. The pre-treatment program that we have has long been forgotten about. We've been moving towards expanding the pre-treatment program to look at the new industries or older industries that are in town. And along with the new requirements from DEP, EPA, and those things. Just about a year and a half ago, I got the right person in the position. He's identified a bunch of our shortcomings. Part of my budget this year is requesting an additional person for that group, so that way we are sure all the industries in town are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now, just looking at my budget for next year, fiscal year 2021, overall, the department's requesting an extra 2.4% on top of what they did in 2020. But when you look at that, most of it is in salary and in staffing. The overall additional request was $321,000. $308,000 of that is in staffing alone. That a lot of it has to do with that new pretreatment individual that I spoke of, but we also have a career progression amongst the operations staff. So anytime an operations staff gets their time and grade, time and service, takes coursework, and passes state required exams to acquire the next license, they have a career progression path that they can take, and a lot of that salary is due to Otherwise, the rest of the budget is basically just very, very, very minor adjustments for different utilities or different chemicals. As we have to bid out chemicals, those costs go up every year. Natural gas goes up if here and there, power goes up. But overall, outside of salaries, we're only looking at an extra $14,000 out of, I'm sorry, I didn't mention the total. I think it's $13,412,000. And that's what I have for you today. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Oh, Ms. Benson has questions. Sorry, we lost caller 3. We gained Ms. Ritz, and Ms. Benson has a couple of questions.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Campbell. You mentioned Gulf Power. Every year we increase our budget because of our power going up. But when the pandemic started, Gulf Power announced a reduction of their rates. Was that just for residential customers, or did it affect us?
We have not seen a reduction in the rates. There was a one-time fuel surcharge that was returned to us. I believe it was last month, and it was in the order of $140,000 plus or minus across all of the facilities that I oversee. But I did not actually request a power increase this fiscal year.
No, I've just seen them across, and you jogged that in my memory, so that's why I asked. Speaking of Gulf Power, you referred to alternate sites for effluent disposal, and I know you're looking at those. Where are we on that, and what do you see as our alternatives?
It's really hard to predict at this time. We've reached out to another industry local. Gulf Power is going to require cooling water for a time. There's not 100% agreement on where they're going in the long run. If you actually look at their original plan, they should have had a natural gas line in last summer and been running on natural gas. So we're a year and change behind that now. We have requested for an Escambia River discharge from the DEP. That's one of the things that's being pushed off right now. We also have several other options that we're looking at, whether it's a different wetlands type facility, different industry. So we're trying to open our minds to everything that might be possible at this time.
Wow. You know, when we were planning to move the Main Street sewage plant, one of the things we bragged about was that no longer would treated effluent go into our waterways, and oh dear. Well, yeah, that's an important thing to do, because I think eventually we are going to lose Gulf Power's business for our effluent. Let me ask you one other thing. We have a very abundant aquifer, so we don't have the urgency that South Florida has. We have plenty of water, but on Pensacola Beach, we're working on doing some reuse of treated water for irrigation. Are we pursuing that in any way in other parts of the county?
The biggest issue with irrigation is that when it rains, nobody needs it, and that's when we have the most water available to us. So even if we were to go that route, it's a huge capital cost, because just as the collection system for potable water, the distribution system for potable water, we'd have to do an entirely separate distribution system for reclaimed. That would include just as many booster pump stations, just as many storage tanks, just as many miles of line as our potable water system.
Wow.
So over time, it all adds up. In a perfect world, you would be looking for the industries like we currently use in Gulf Power and in International Paper as their major users who use it whether it's raining or it's not raining.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. So obviously, to spend that amount on infrastructure that really isn't necessary, we do better to do sewer expansion. Thanks. That's enlightening. Thank you, Mr. Sears.
There are a lot of places in the state. If you go down in the Tampa, St. Pete area, they have major distribution systems for their irrigation, but they also have to have the backup surface water discharge for those days when it's raining and nobody's irrigating their lawns.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Good questions. And I too worry about what we're going to do with reclaimed water. It's one of my main reasons for choosing Mr. Woody, I think he told me that he had more reclaimed water than we do, even though he served a smaller community. So that was part of my push for him. Randy, on the CLE credits, are you able to do any of that virtual? I mean, I have to have CLE credits, and I know everybody's having a hard time getting them. So
Yes, there's a lot of virtual options that we're using right now. There's also courses through, oddly enough, University of California at Sacramento that are available for CEUs. There are some Florida Rural Water Association. Department of Homeland Security even has some stuff that's available for 1/10 of a CEU here and there. Most of our operators only require one, so it doesn't take long to get there. Some of our higher level operators need 2 or 3. This is something we've been working on as time allows and as is available right now with the pandemic currently going on.
Yeah, my industry went to pay for CLE a few years ago, and it really helped. I mean, $60 an hour, but it's still cheaper than flying somewhere. So we may get some good out of a little good out of COVID if there's any to be gotten. I don't see any other questions, so thank you very much for the great presentation. And I think we are moving now to page 24 and water production. And is this going to be Mr. Palmer? Oh.
It is,
Hey, there we go.
Good afternoon, Madam.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Don Palmer. I'm the Deputy Executive Director over Water Production, Water Reclamation, and Engineering. Tom Dawson is the Director of Water Production, and he couldn't be here today, and I'm filling in for Tom. So the Water Production Department has about 44 employees. Approximately 30 of those employees are licensed in one way, shape, or certified form or another. They're responsible for operation of the 31 water wells, the 6 elevated storage tanks, the 8 ground storage tanks, and 5 pump stations. The Water Production Department is divided into 4 divisions. These divisions include the Main Operations Division, a Well Mechanical Division, Cross Connection Control Division, and the Communications Center, sometimes called the SCADA Center. Mainly responsible for monitoring, operating, reporting on the wells, the tanks, and the pump stations. And the Water Administration is also in the Water Operations Division. The Well Mechanical Division is just what it says it is. It's responsible for maintenance of the water production facilities. The Cross Connection Control runs ECUA's Cross Connection Control program. And the Communications Center also monitors the wells as well as the lift stations and takes calls after hours and coordinates some of the regulatory agency notifications that we have to do. One of the main goals you'll see is to provide ECUA customers with high quality water for consumption with a quantity sufficient to meet their needs, and to do that as economically as possible. A couple of the objectives identified was to evaluate and identify capital improvement needs to continue to meet those future demands. And that includes capital improvements that are part of the master plan. And we did update the master plan this year. We have a 20-year master plan that went through 3031. We updated this year to identify future improvements that need to be made, and we're working on those improvements. Another main objective, of course, is to meet all water quality standards. A couple of things completed this past year include some of the recommendations in the 20-year master plan, including the recently completed the Blue Angel pressure sustaining valve. That's a valve on Blue Angel Parkway that allows us to flow water from the north zone to the south zone while maintaining pressure in the north zone. Also, looking to perform improvements on existing water treatment facilities to maintain them into compliance with potential new regulations. One of the things we did not get accomplished last year was the West Well water treatment facility. We directed that money to a well where we had some issues, unexpected issues, and completed repairs at that facility. Moving forward, we're looking to remove the well and pump discharge column at the West Well. If you're familiar with that, that's West Well and tank. The West tank is one of the oldest tanks in our system. It's not far north of Garden Street. It's our western elevated well. I believe that well was built approximately 1940. So we keep it up to date and in service. There's some other targeted accomplishments there you can see. One of the things that we do every year, but we're trying to do a few more of this coming year, is to upgrade the lime rooms and rehab the lime rooms. One of the things we deal with is lime is a very corrosive substance, and it causes us a lot of maintenance issues. Going on to the budget, there's a couple of big increases. Those big increases are in the areas of materials or chemicals. There's a big increase, a significant increase for the estimated cost of lime. We don't know what that's going to be at this point. That is an estimated cost. We will bid that out in December. We are being told from suppliers to expect an increase, but we don't know how much. It went up 15% last year. The other big supply you'll see that's increased is granular activated carbon. And the reason for that is just additional treatment at the water wells. We're adding carbon to more water treatment facilities, and we're anticipating doing 3 change outs this coming year, maybe 4. So the last item on the report is we have put in for a improvement package for an additional employee. That additional employee's purpose would be to be a compliance officer, basically to make sure we're meeting all of our rules and regulations, and working with the lab that does some of the sampling, or operators that do some of the sampling. We do sampling and analysis for DEP. We do it for the Water Management District. And, just trying to do a better job coordinating those activities. This position would also be a licensed water operator and should help reduce some overtime issues. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I believe we have questions by Dr. Walker.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. First, Don, you said we have 31 wells. Don't we actually have, I've heard the number 35 in the past. Can you clear up the difference?
I don't know where the number 35 came from. We have 28 active right now.
Okay.
31 water wells that I believe are permitted through the Water Management District. We have 5 additional proposed wells in the central well field. 2 wells are built, but there's no facility for those wells. There's no road, there's no electric, there's no pump, there's just the well in the ground. So when we did our last Water Management District permit, consumptive use permit, or water use permit they're called now, we said we would add 5 wells, and potentially at some point, but those are the only other wells I'm aware of.
Okay, that leads me into my next question. It's my impression that we have a very ample supply of water now and an ample capacity to pump the water. And in fact, we would not need a new well for several years. What's your response to that?
Well, we do have substantial amounts of water. It's getting it to the right place at the right pressure is key. One of the things we're looking at, the planning assistance to states funding that we got to help optimize the water system, was to look at the cost of various wells. The well field shouldn't need the granular activated carbon treatment. That's going to add a lot to the cost of a well for treatment. And so we were looking at additional wells as a way to help offset the cost and to provide some additional reliability. Additionally, there's going to be some growth in the north and west parts of the county. I don't know who's going to service them. Most of that growth that I'm aware of is not in our franchise area, but we may need wells for that.
Is there any discussion going on anywhere about expanding our franchise area?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Palmer, what's the status of the Hagler well? It's still online, and do we plan to phase it out?
It was taken offline in 2015, and currently we are undergoing a trial of various treatment or different resins for an ion exchange to treat the water from that well. And so depending on the results of that, we will probably, one of our goals is to add treatment to get that well back into service, but it needs, the groundwater coming out of that well needs treatment before we can put it back into the system. So hopefully maybe late next year.
Okay, because that's pretty central to the city of Pensacola, as I recall. So good. Well, I hope we can succeed in doing that. I want to step back kind of 1,000 feet. You are very involved in statewide water issues, and we appreciate you doing that. If you could tell us where we are in comparison to other areas of the state in our technology and all of the other components, and what are you learning from other people that we could be imitating to do better?
One of the things I would start off by saying is we are very blessed with the water we have in this area. We do have an abundant source of water. One of the things that's going on in the rest of the state is they're running out of water. There was legislation passed this past year, or it was part of legislation that was passed. It was pulled out of legislation at the last minute that was based on turning wastewater into water, potable water. And that's due to the rest of the state running out of water. There was legislation passed that directed DEP to implement rules for direct potable reuse, as it's called, going from wastewater treatment plants to potable drinking water. And that's because the rest of the state is running out of water. As far as technology, again, we're blessed with abundant water and for the most part, good water. We do have some issues with PFAS, and we are treating those. There are other places in the state that have similar issues, and I think we are ahead of most of those. Most of those have just shut down their wells, and so we are looking at, we're treating some, we're looking at options for treatment and moving in that regard.
Periodically, there are rumors that parts of the rest of the state are going to make a run on our water because we don't own the water under our land. I haven't heard that recently. Have you heard any more of that kind of chatter?
I don't think it's economically feasible. It is accurate that we don't, technically, the water management ditch has control of the water, and you have to get a permit from them, but it'd be very, very expensive and difficult for them to transport the water and get the water. And that's why the direct potable reuse rules are coming into effect. That's one of the most cost efficient things they're finding for developing potable reuse.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the great questions. Ms. Schumer.
Where's the Hagler well located, and what area does it service again?
The Hagler well, or the Hagler well, is on the south side of the airport. Services that area around there, but it can also be one of the main well supplies for the beach. And so it's all tied together. We have a network of wells, but it mainly is outside of the airport in that area.
Okay, and just the last question. Since it's offline and it has been offline since, I think you said 2015, what well is servicing the area currently?
There is a network of wells that are all tied together. That's our water distribution system. That's the 31 wells. Generally, you go from the north zone to the south zone. We have 2 pressure zones just due to elevation differences. You can't flow from the south zone to the north zone, but we're pretty well interconnected. And so we can have a well out of service and it not really affect us. There's other wells in that area. There's a Spanish Trail well and a couple others not too far away that provide us the redundancy to be able to take that well offline.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Shimo. Ms. Ritz, are you still with us? Are your green light on? Good. She may have lost contact, but I'll watch for her. Dr. Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Don, you spoke of the legislature directing the EP to prepare rules for conversion to regulate conversion of sewage to potable water. And what did you call that? Was it direct potable reuse?
That's correct, direct potable reuse.
Okay, that's a term I hadn't heard before, but I expect we'll be hearing more of in the future. Let me say something else. I asked about how many wells we had beyond 31. When I first came on the board, I was told that there was at least one well that was among the wonderful assets that the city gave to ECUA back in 1981, for which ECUA gave the city $40 million. But there was one well that had been shut down by the city for 30 years, and they gave it to us, and it was still shut down when I heard about it. And I suppose that maybe at some time it went out of our inventory somehow, but it's been there for decades and never usable because it was so contaminated. Just another little history lesson about the wonderful way in which ECUA was created by the city and the county way back when. Thank you for that term, direct potable reuse, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Walker, is there any way you could turn your fan off? I think it's causing us not to be able to hear you. Good. Thank you. Ms. Ritz, I think you had a question. Ms. Ritz, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Will you turn your mic on? I'm going to move to Ms. Schneier.
Are there currently water utilities that do the direct potable reuse?
There's at least 3, I believe 4 utilities in the state of Florida that have pilot projects for direct potable reuse. I don't believe they're actually discharging into the system yet because I don't think they're permitted to do so, and thus that was part of the regulation to create those rules and regulations so they could be permitted. But there are utilities doing pilot projects for right now for that purpose.
Are you researching into how that is done? Because I'm sure that it will evolve and there will be many changes to the pilot project. I don't know.
I think, as I started off by saying, we are blessed with bountiful water, and it would be a cost that hopefully we would never have to incur. So at least not any time in the foreseeable future, many, many years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schneier, there was another nickname for it last year that it was called toilet to tap. And there was big talk about this around the state. So, and I'm very, very happy that we will probably not see that in our lifetime in Escambia County, but I'm glad that Don brought it up. Don, as Ms. Benson said, does do a great job. I'm sorry, I have another speaker. It's Mr. Inkle. Do you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to, for my understanding of the whole process of getting the water, the 31 wells, are they all coming out of the same aquifer or different aquifers? And if they are, why are some of the wells contaminated? I mean, I'm trying to understand, and like especially that Hagler one that had to be shut down for the ion exchange treatment and all that.
Certainly, they're all in what's called the sand and gravel aquifer, and essentially they are exposed to contaminants on the surface potentially. And so what gets most of our GAC has been due to either dry cleaning, gas stations, or something else that has contaminated the aquifer, AFFF foam or something like that. And it affects the area surrounding that well, the recharge area of that well, and therefore we have to treat it. So the whole aquifer is not contaminated, but parts of it certainly are. And we've shut down wells in some areas in past history before my time that were contaminated by other outside sources.
So the contamination sort of stays in a local area. I always thought of aquifers as an underground river, and the contamination still leaches through the ground, still gets in that area, and seems to flow wherever it goes. But it just, the contamination stays in a local area pretty much for our purposes.
Pretty much. Groundwater moves very, very, very slowly, and there's a capture zone for each well, as they call it. And so whatever happens in that capture zone can affect the water well. Granted, there is an overall direction of north to south in the aquifer. So yes, it is kind of flowing like a river. It also splits about Highway 29 and goes east-west to the various rivers. The groundwater flows. So you have a north to south and a east to west component of that groundwater flow.
Don, you might mention our wellhead protection program.
Okay. We do have a wellhead protection program that was established 25, I think, years ago, somewhere in that time frame, maybe longer ago than that. Tim Haig was, I think, big on it, getting it started. But anyways, around each well, we have what's called a 7-year and 20-year time of travel. And anytime there is a development that is proposed in those zones, and this is in the county maps, we developed these areas due to modeling of the aquifer. We get a notification from the county and or the city, and we have a chance to comment, to make changes. Especially in the 7-year, we have the ability to prevent certain things from happening in the 7-year time of travel in the area around the wellhead.
I was going to say thank you very much, and that it is amazing to me, just a couple of meetings I've been to, how complicated everything that ECUA really does. The public just could not appreciate all this.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Inkle. I totally agree, and I love your questions because, you know, some of us have been here for a little while and we forget to go back to the basics. So some of the questions are really good, especially for our newer members of the CAC. I want to echo Ms. Benson's talk about Dawn at the statewide issues. Last year, I was on my way to Tallahassee to meet with legislators, and he told me about a movement of a Senate bill to stop discharge with spray fields. And I thought, holy cow, that's how we get rid of our water. So unlike the rest of the state, we have an abundance of water and they don't have enough water, and they want to stop using spray fields around the state. I was able to talk to the maker of that bill at the Senate door before they went into session. So I appreciated Don bringing it to my attention, and he does a great job. Don, I'm going to ask the board to forgive me for moving up an item, but I know you're a busy man and you have a lot to do, and you are our new member of the Florida West. So can you stay there for just 1 minute? We may have a question. I'm going to let Mr. Woody bring, if the board doesn't mind, if anybody does, please raise your hand. But I had an item on page 2 for $40,000 that we spend to be a member of the board of Florida West. And Don is our seat on that board now that Mr. Hagen is gone. And so I'm going to ask Bruce to just describe the reason why we stay on this board, if he would. Thank you. Mr. Woody.
Can you hear me okay through this speaker?
Yes, sir.
Good. Florida West is an important organization for the entire county. They're an organization that works on behalf of the economic development interests of the entire county. And as an important community member, ECUA has a seat at the table with that organization. We have an interest certainly in making sure that we are contributing to the progress in the community, the economic growth of the community, which is directly for us as a utility, helps widen our customer base, provides us opportunities to be able to add industrial customers, potentially reuse customers even for that matter. Now, the competing interest that we have is that they have a number of projects throughout the county. The one being spoken of probably most prevalently is the Bluffs, which is in an area that includes quite a bit of ECUA property. There's been various concepts floated around and project sizes that involve various numbers of acres of ECUA property. By having a seat at the table, not only can we be a community partner and participate in the voting and decision-making and policy recommendations regarding economic development interest, at the same time, quite frankly, we can also better protect our interests over our own property and make sure that we have a strong voice at the table, because in the area that we own up near the CWRF, we have potential for water well development, spray field development, wetlands development, and even expansion of the plant. So first and foremost, yes, we need to protect our own interests, but we also have an opportunity potentially to speak and bring in a customer base, maybe an industrial reuse customer that could be of some advantage as well.
Thank you, sir. I know this is a question that has been put out to those of a lot of us that are running, and I support our decision to stay on the Florida West Board because that is our property. It's not ECUA's property. It belongs to the people that we serve, and I think that it is great that we are on the board and we can keep an eye on it, the progress of Florida West. As a matter of fact, last year, Tim, I was invited to a meeting and they had a presentation that said how much it would cost to move our spray fields. And it was a very, very low cost. I immediately called Jerry Piscopo, and Don gave me the correct amount that it would cost to move those spray fields. And they had to upgrade that presentation before they took it to the state. So I think it's very important that we stay there and protect the interests of the citizens of ECUA and the ratepayers. So I don't have anything else to say about that unless anybody wants to take it out of the budget. I'm happy that it's there. Thank you, Don. I appreciate you coming to the meeting, and I wanted to get that out because I know you're very busy. So thank you again for coming. The next thing we have is we are going to vote on the proposed budget, page 28 of your. And Mr. Woody, do you want to please tell us all the increments of the budget?
over the last 2 meetings, you've had an opportunity to receive presentations on a department by department basis, overviewing the details of the operations of the departments, as well as their financial goals and expenses for the given year. Several great questions were asked along the way, and I certainly appreciate the line of questioning that we received from CAC members. I understand that it's been a little more involved the last couple of years, and perhaps this year even more so. So I appreciate that level of participation. In the end, there's lots of policies that a board makes and the CAC committee recommends, but in the end, your most important policy statement, quite frankly, is your budget. It's a statement of what you're going to spend your funds on, what you prioritize in terms of what you need and want to get done. So it is a very important document. At our last meeting, there were a number of questions asked and a few financial items listed. Quite frankly, the majority of the discussion in the notes that I took had more to do with clarifications on individual items or things that we ought to be considering or taking a look at in the coming year. Some of those, very few of those had direct financial implications in terms of edits or changes to the budget. The few things that I have noted for change next year, one of them includes updating in the executive director's program, the professional services line item. We submitted it with a $20,000 line item. We will probably bump that to 60, and to be sure we have room for an adequate level of lobbying services for next year. As was mentioned in this and previous meetings, we have opportunities to bring state dollars back into our community. But to do that, we have to have an adequate voice. We have to have a means to communicate. While we are close to Tallahassee, there's still nothing like actually having somebody there on our behalf on a regular basis, developing those relationships. So those are funds well invested. Also, I discussed having a cost of service rate study for next year. Depending on the scope of that, that can be anywhere from I'm used to seeing probably in the $55,000 range on an ongoing basis. It is more expensive the first year to go through that process, maybe even as much as 70 or 80, but that depends largely on the scope. That'll be a project that we discuss with the board at a future time, and that would be the only additional placeholder I'd like to put into the budget. But beyond that, the budget is pretty much as presented, and I'm open to any questions you might have or nominations for how you might want to forward it on to the board for their meeting next week.
I move the proposed water, wastewater, and sanitation budgets as submitted, with the understanding that there may be enhanced lobbying services as well as a rate study of cost of service included in the upcoming year's budget.
Thank you to Mr. Kimball.
I'll second that.
And that will include the capital improvement project list, and everybody can see that on page 75, which I want to reiterate takes us down to where the dark line is on page 75 to the $31 million. Everything above that, Miramar blood pressure system and river gardens in there, Mr. Perkins. So, no further, Dr. Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm concerned about this budget because I don't think it takes into account the economic changes that are going to occur within the scope of this coming fiscal year. and certainly thereafter. I seriously believe that we are in for perhaps the worst recession since the Great Depression. And I think it is reckless of us to not be already taking steps to be prepared for that as best we can. I think that the expectations of revenue that are in this budget are unrealistic, that we're going to come up with a revenue shortfall, that we will have to tighten our budget before the year is over. And I also think that we may have to make changes in order to be prepared for fiscal year 2022 in a proper manner. I think we should cut our capital improvements budget by a couple of $1 million at least, in order to just set aside more money if the money does prove available, and to be prepared for shortfalls if the shortfalls do occur. I think we should tighten the budget. I think we should reduce rate the salary increases from an average of 2.5 down to say 1.0, because in the coming fiscal year, anyone who has a job is going to be a fortunate person, more fortunate than many of his neighbors and in the community. So I would seriously suggest that rather than adopt this budget exactly as it is, although I would love to do so, I think we should talk about reductions in this budget, such as salary decrease and CIP decrease. Unless someone agrees with me, there's no sense in me making a motion, so I just throw it out for discussion if there is any.
Can you hear my question?
Yes, Ms.
Board,
Ricks.
can you hear my question? This is Louise.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Okay. I worked for an organization that had a tightening of the budget, and they did restrict our salaries increases that year. And we found that very helpful. And I know people work very hard for the ECUA. However, we're not real sure what the economy is going to do. So I'm interested in hearing about that part. But yet our capital improvement fund seems to be providing much needed revenue for the many projects that need to take place to keep it functioning at a good level. I'm finished now.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Shima.
A couple of things. One, I definitely don't think we should touch salaries, because if we are definitely heading into a recession, everyone's going to need that, and you're going to need the money
No,
to
you
help.
don't cut the salary. You're cutting the increase.
I'm sorry, Ms. Shimo, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think we need to look to see where we could possibly make some changes on the sanitation side, so that one, we don't increase rates right now because of what is potentially happening as a result of COVID, be it recession, what have you. I do think we need to look at some projects that we might be able to cut back on, or take a couple of things off the list that we might can maybe more so move forward with it in, say, 2022 or 2023. But I definitely don't think we should cut salaries. Maybe not hire I know there's a couple of departments, a few departments that want to increase staff. Maybe we could do the increase. I want to say, and I apologize, I'm not thinking of the correct department right now. They requested 4, maybe we could do 2 additional instead, and that would assist with maintaining the budget as it is without increase. and then also having that savings there, as Dr. Walker was speaking of.
Thank you, Ms. Schumann. I have a caller 5. Caller 5, would you like to speak? If not, would you please mute your button? If you're on a cell phone, please press star 6. Caller 5 that has joined our talk. They are outside. Someone joined the call that is outside. So much for not using Zoom, huh? Okay. Vincent, just try to talk about caller 5. Sorry. Vincent, you are recognized.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Campbell. I hear what Dr. Walker is saying, and I certainly understand. I think when this whole pandemic started, I probably was the biggest prophet of doom, and I still am very, very concerned. However, I just don't think there are any kind of crystal balls. When you look at what the stock market is doing right now, it is absolutely inconsistent with what we think the economy is doing. The jobless numbers are going down. This is a wild roller coaster. Right now, there are a couple of promising vaccines that look like they will be available at the end of this year, one in Britain. And, you know, all of those things are going to impact this whole economy. I don't think any of us can project clearly. And so the prudent course is a pretty conservative budget. I mean, this is a budget without a rate increase. It's a 45-cent a month rate increase on sanitation. We certainly have the ability to at some point, if things change dramatically, to revisit the budget. I don't think we are precluded from doing that. I certainly don't want to consider reducing that salary increase. I think the one thing we have learned in this pandemic is that the workers at ECUA are absolutely on the front line of vital workers in our society. And if ever a salary increase was warranted, this is one year that we should do it. And so I hear you, Dr. Walker, and you always give sage financial advice. It's just we're playing a little bit blind right now, so I think the prudent course is just to stay the course as we're doing. Thank you.
I will once again ask the new caller that has just joined us to push star 6 on their cell phone so that we cannot hear this. I'm sorry, guys. Chuck Kimball, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with Mrs. Benson. I mean, I think we heard with every department presenting just about the challenges that they were having, finding or keeping, good employees. And there's a whole lot of, I deal with that every day with businesses all throughout this area that are struggling to find employees. And I think to cut out, increase staff would probably not be a good move as far as helping to keep good employees there when you've got competition like Navy Federal out there who's hiring a bunch of people. So I think it is a very modest increase that we're talking about that I think is something that, and it's I think it's a great list of CIP projects that are going to get done, and I agree that, if as the year changes, if something comes up, I mean, you guys have the the authority to go out there and change the direction of what's going on throughout the year if things should change. But I think that with what we know right now, which is who knows, I think that this is I think it's a good budget. So that,
Thank you, Chuck.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Woody.
Yes, I wasn't sure if you heard me. Two things I would add in some of the members have already mentioned it. As we go through the fiscal year, you're reminded that presentations on our fiscal health are presented on a regular basis. So we have an ongoing review of our revenues over expenses so that we can make adjustments through the year if that is necessary. A budget is but a snapshot in time, and it is ever evolving and changing, and the board has the authority to make changes throughout the year as needed, whether that might be holding back a little bit on capital. I would also remind you that in this particular budget, we're proposing under this rate structure increasing our savings account effectively, currently at $3.5 million, trying to boost that to $4.5. I would ask that we continue that progress probably over time, trying to come up with eventually 2 months worth of savings. But if there's a little room, a little relief valve, so to speak, the two locations most likely for that in the upcoming budget is to not achieve that proposed extra $1 million in savings and or cutting back a little bit on CIP, but we can decide that as the year progresses.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. Dale Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to speak in favor of the proposed budget. I am really pleased with staff's approach. I mean, they've worked really hard and been very conservative. And the last thing we want to do when there's, a potential threat of job loss for people is to have a big rate increase and cause them more uncertainty and difficulty. The things I liked about the budget is that there's no rate increase in water and sewer, and for a very large portion of our population, there's no rate increase in sanitation. All the people who have city sanitation will not be a part of the small rate increase for sanitation. The sanitation rate increase is necessitated by the decline in value of recyclables and some other market factors going on. And it's a minimal increase. We don't like to see any, but unless we want to stop recycling or cut back on services, it's necessary because they're real close to the line there. Santa Rosa, got away from ECUA and had a $4 or $5 rate increase. I mean, so we're providing pretty economic services. From the competitive market, it looks like we're real economic, and so that's a good thing. I like that we're building reserves in this budget. A lot of that is due to growth. We've had a lot of growth in the area, and so we're able to do some of these things. So I think the approach taken by the staff is, is cautionary, responsible, prudent, and a good budget. And as far as CIP goes and cutting CIP projects, I mean, we're under consent order from DEP. Those CIP projects are not going to go away. They need to be done. And I would rather put pipes in the ground than spend money on just about anything. So the CIP projects are real important, and it's kind of like the old commercial says, you can pay me now or pay me later. We need to get the CIP projects done. We've taken an approach that lets us be, as aggressive as we can with it without going crazy with the rates and putting people in financial jeopardy. So overall, the one word I think that sums up the budget is responsible. I think the staff has done a very responsible job with the budget, and I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Schneier.
What is the total projected revenue for fiscal year 2021? Where is that in here?
On
page 35. Page 35.
It's on page 35.
Yes.
Thank you.
For the water system. Wastewater.
Water and wastewater is on 35, and sanitation I'll find while you're looking at that.
Sanitation is on 130.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce.
Patty already had her book already tabbed. Ready to go.
35 and 130.
Do we know if we added it all together, do we know what the projected revenue would is for 2021? Do we have that one number? That dollar amount?
Hang on, I'll give it to you.
There we go.
And then my next question is, what are all the projected expenses added up?
89. Okay. On the revenue side, about 189 million. Yeah, and it's a balanced budget, so it's the same on the expense side.
189 million.
189 million. That's revenue and expenses, but it's a balanced budget.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Schneider?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Schumo.
What's the, thank you, Madam Chair, what's the amount of that 2% increase? What is that, what's the dollar amount for that? How
45
much?
cents a month for the normal customer.
No, I mean, as far as the revenue times, the amount of, because you're saying this is not all ratepayers, this would be a just county, not the city included. So what are we looking at as far as the total revenue from doing the increase?
On the sanitation side, it's about 500,000.
Yeah, I looked for it and I didn't see it.
He's getting it.
I'm sorry, did that answer the question? That subset of the larger budget is not itemized in the budget copy you have before you.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? I didn't hear I think I heard the last part of what you said. I didn't hear the beginning. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you had asked where in the budget that showed. That subset of the larger budget document you have is not shown. So 489,000 was the answer to your question.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Does that answer all your questions, Ms. Schumo?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Caller 5, do you have a question? If not, I am going to also support this budget, and I normally I love being the chair because you get to echo someone, and I'm going to echo Mr. Perkins. I believe this is a very responsible budget. During this difficult time, I would not want to lower any salaries for our employees. I had dinner the other night with a guy that has a auto mechanic shop, and he was telling me how difficult it is right now to get auto mechanics. There are not enough auto mechanics out there. There's not enough auto mechanics. There's not enough telephone operators. There's not enough, I can tell you right now, title researchers. I mean, if I could hire 10, but there are not 10 right now that I could find. So I think we're going to have a difficult time finding people to fill jobs. I don't think we're going to have a difficult time. So I do approve this budget. I do think 45 cents is very minimal for the majority of the people we serve in sanitation. And the main reason I'm for that is because it increases our reserves as we head into hurricane season. So with that said, I am going to have Miss Amanda call the vote if we don't have any further questions. I'm sorry, Ms. Benson has a question.
No, I was just ready to vote.
Ready to vote. All right, Ms. Miller.
Chairman Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kimball,
Yes.
Dr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Pelfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Perkins,
Yes.
Miss Ritz,
Yes.
Miss Schneider,
Yes.
Ms. Schumo,
Off. Your microphone is off. Ms. Schumo.
Schumo,
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Benson,
Yes.
and Mr. Inkle.
Mr. Inkle, your microphone is off.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Perfect. It passes 10-0.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very informative budget meetings this year. I appreciate every one of you spending so much time. I think together we have spent almost 5 hours on the budget, and a job well done by everyone on this CAC. We move now to item H, which is award of contract for site preparation, construction of slabs, and offloading of Muldoon granular activated carbon GAC filter vessels. Mr. Woody, would you like to tell us about this? It is on page 149 of your agenda.
Earlier, the board last year in November awarded purchase of 6 granular activated carbon or GAC vessels to support treatment of well water over at the Muldoon and Avondale site. The purpose is because we have a PFOA, PFOS issue at that location. Those vessels are scheduled to be delivered in September of this year. We have construction now ready to go, and this agenda item is for recommendations of bids. You'll see in the item a list of bids received, low bidder being Utility Service Company. And it's our recommendation that we go with the lowest quote by Utility Service Company in the amount of $280,715.18. This is a funded CIP project. Staff's requesting that we move funds from CW 115 to CW 006 for proceeding on this project.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kimball.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second. This is Louise.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz? Ms. Schumo, question?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Ms. Ritz?
Thank you. What happens to the project that the funds are being transferred from Humphrey's well replacement? What happens to that project?
Could I ask for Don's assistance in answering that question? Ms. Ritz was asking about the funds from which this project is being drawn in order to fund construction of the next project.
Okay. I'm going to have to ask Daniel which project we took that from. The Humphreys?
Yes, it was the Humphreys.
The Humphreys well replacement, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I caught Don while he was having another conversation. I didn't hear the original question.
What happens to the project that the money is being withdrawn from?
We will still go ahead with that project. We'll fund so much every year, and that's why we asked for more money this year.
Okay, and the other question is, I was curious as to what is the causal factor of these contaminants? Is it something that's naturally occurring, or is this something from a previous building or ground flow that was there?
It is generally something that polluted the aquifer. It is not natural, generally speaking, in our area. We have a good aquifer, so it's something man-induced, generally just below the surface of the aquifer or on the surface of the ground and soaked into the aquifer.
Couldn't have been dry cleaning fluid, could it? I mean,
but we have several wells where we have granular activated carbon for dry cleaning fluid. We also are adding them mainly now for firm polyfluoroalkyl substances. We also have one, I believe, for gasoline facility, but I believe that one is just about done. So that's the main uses of the GAC.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schneier.
Are these contaminants still being introduced into the aquifer, or is the total of what's there and we're just filtering it out?
As I said earlier, groundwater moves very slowly, and so most of these were introduced a long time ago.
Okay.
But you know, rules and regulations have increased, environmental rules and regulations, monitoring fueling facilities. You know, in the late 80s, they came in with double wall tanks, monitoring the interstitial space between tanks at stations, having people have money set aside to be able to handle cleanup. So they changed the whole underground storage tank rules in the late 80s. And so most of that is behind us. The dry cleanings have been cleaned up, or changed the rules there as well. So most of that is behind us.
Is there a difference in the quality of the product in these different companies that provide it? Because there's quite a price difference.
There are some different forms of carbon, and we use them for different uses. In other words, they're targeted towards a particular parameter. One type of carbon does better at removing this contaminant versus another type of carbon. That answers your question.
So as far as choosing the one that we go with, are all of these, are the 4 choices geared toward this particular contaminant? Obviously, or they wouldn't be the choices. So then we're just going with the cheapest one is the recommendation.
I believe so. I think this is all apples to apples, this particular bid. Yes, I just want to make sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm going to restate that just so it's clear. All 4 of these bidders bid on the same bid package. So we specified what type of filtering system GAC we're using at this location based on the constituent we're wanting to address. And they all bid on it, and we're recommending award to the lowest of the 4 bidders. But again, they were all bidding on the very same scope of work.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. Ms. Schumo.
Just clarification on the 4 that was sent the proposal. It says we sent it to these 4 because this is who we've dealt with in time past. Was this publicly put out at all, RP, or just these 4?
This particular one, due to the time frame, we sent it out to get prices. So it was sent to these 4 generally local firms to get prices that we know work in this area and do good work and have provided us with prices in the past. It was not a publicly open bid due to the time frames associated with them.
Okay. Madam Chair, are we in is there any type of compliance issue with this? I thought most projects that have to go out, that we have to do has to be publicly noticed.
Mr. Woody, would you like to address this question?
Yeah. We do have a procurement policy that dictates the conditions and times under which we have to advertise versus when we can have sole source procurement. There are provisions for in either true emergencies, say we have a break or failure in line, or there are time constraints where we can short circuit certain elements. We certainly always have to have 3 or more bids for items over a certain value. In this particular case, we contacted 4. We had a sensitivity for trying to keep customers' funds local by contacting local businesses and those that have performed well in the past. But due to the length of time for publicly advertising, going through larger bidding process, as compared against the timeline we had to get this in place. We had to take the shorter of the two options under the procurement code.
Thank you. Ms. Schumo, does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Good questions. Ms. Benson?
Yeah, just to clarify, I don't think we can do local preference as much as we'd like to. I think we have to be very cautious about that.
That's correct. I mean, we just worked with firms who do work with us. In this particular case, we were able to get prices people. Right.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply local preference, so choose a low bidder based on whether they're local or not, or given that type of consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Schumo, we normally go with the lowest bidder, and if there is a time constraint on a project, they will go out to the businesses that they've done business with in the past. But we normally do go out with an RFP. The time constraint was the reason for no RFP on this one. Do we have any further questions on this issue? Dr. Walker?
I just wanted to throw in a word that yes, we do not have any kind of local preference policy. We've discussed it in the past, and it's just really not workable. It's also not cost effective if we wind up paying more to a local vendor than we do to one from out of town. It's taking money out of the pockets of our customers. So we've decided that we do not do local preference. It may be that in the necessity of getting something done, occasionally we do find ourselves actually giving an unintended preference to local vendors, but no, we do not have such a policy, and we should not.
Thank you, sir. I totally agree. No further questions? If not, Ms. Miller, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Kimball?
Yes.
Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pelfrey?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Ms. Ritz?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Schumo?
Yes.
Ms. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Inkle?
Yes.
And Chairman Campbell?
Yes.
And it passes 10-0.
Thank you, ma'am. We move now to item I, which is extension of a chemical contract for sodium hypochlorite, which is bleach. This is on page 152 of your agenda. And do I have a motion?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Chuck. Do I have a second?
I second.
Inkle will second.
Thank you, Mr. Inkle. And any further discussion? Ms. Ritz, did you have a question?
I have a question. This is Louise.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, with this disinfectant, what is the interaction of with the wastewater as the final discharge and into where it goes? Hello?
Yes.
Hold on just a minute.
Wastewater Director Randy Sears is going to comment.
Randy, can I answer your question?
Yes, Ms. Ritz. So both Pensacola Beach and the CWRF are permitted. So they're required by FDEP to use sodium hypochlorite for pathogen reduction, for disinfection. The CWRF discharges chlorinated water to the International Paper Mill for their paper products. We dechlorinate to a certain extent the water that goes to Gulf Power. The water that goes to the wetlands is completely dechlorinated. At Pensacola Beach, the water that is irrigated on the medians does have some residual chlorine in it, but the water that goes to Santa Rosa Sound is dechlorinated before it goes out.
Thank you. I have one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, it doesn't deal directly with this, but it's kind of amusing, but yet it's not. The waste from septic systems in Yellowstone and other locations have shown the COVID virus in the waste. And I wondered how effective this particular chemical is in eliminating the danger of that should it occur.
The current studies that I've heard of regarding COVID and wastewater are on the raw wastewater side. That would be what is entering the treatment facility. I have not heard of any particular studies being done on what is done after the process, after the biological, after the filtration, and after the disinfection. So I don't personally know of any studies that have been done on that. The Yellowstone one that you are talking about is the wastewater going in, and there are several other municipalities across the country that have looked at the raw wastewater side on that. That is something that we have not done at this point.
Do you anticipate doing that in the near future?
I don't have plans. If directed, I am aware of some individuals who could potentially do it for us, but I would have to reach out to them.
Yeah, to my knowledge, the only entities that have done it in conjunction with universities, other testing agencies who are pretty much financing the investigatory work, and the utilities are just providing the samples on which they're then doing the testing. We've not been approached to participate in any of those kinds of studies.
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Good question, Ms. Fritz. I'm sure we'd be open if someone wanted to fund that. If no further questions, I'll ask Amanda to call the vote.
Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pelfrey?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Ms. Fritz?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Schumo?
Yes.
Ms. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. Inkle?
Yes.
Chairman Campbell?
Yes.
And Mr. Kimball?
Yes.
And it passes 10-0.
Thank you, Amanda. Couldn't do this without you. The informational reports are on page 154 for water reclamation. Do we have any questions on the informational report for water reclamation? If not, we move to unfinished business. I only have one item, K1. Every year, every election year, I guess, this kind of comes up that we would move our meetings till after hours so that citizens might attend. I think we would probably bring this up at a board meeting, but I wanted to bring it up at CAC just in case CAC had any changes that they wanted to make. We did change the time of the meetings once before I came on the board, and I think Dr. Walker and Ms. Benson can tell you how that turned out, but from what I'm told, there was no increase in attendees to our meetings. I can't imagine anybody wanting to be at an ECUA meeting on a Tuesday night, but unless they had, business to do with us, and they most of the time can get that business taken care of during the week. Again, I thought I would bring the meeting to this board because we do have some younger members of our board now that are still in the workforce like myself. And I know that after hours meeting may be costly to them. So I'm not bringing this up myself. but if any board member on the board would like to bring up a vote, I'll be more than happy to do so. Thank you very much. We will move now to item L, which is new business. If not, we have an open forum, item M. I had a caller on, but they have left, so I don't think we have anyone open forum. And if nothing else, I want to thank you for another good meeting, a great budget meeting overall this year, and for your extended time. We are adjourned. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Thank you, John.
Bye, Ms. Campbell.
Bye, Jim.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Robert.